The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Back to the Keefer and Kurre show right here on TKR and Tony Kurre Radio, and I'll have you know that the Kip, of course, does a show called Need to Know every single week, and sometimes he'll be talking about something that is so interesting to me that I'll actually come up with an idea, and right after he gets done with the show, I was like, let's go ahead and do another show, and we can knock out our Keefer and Kurre show, which is a show, by the way, we should probably be doing 3 or 4 times a day, not 3 or 4 times a week. So we were talking about last week about movies and about how every movie that is coming out seemed like it was a remake, and now I'm seeing this Gosling movie. I guess the guy who played Ken in Barbie, which is perfect timing. The Fall Guy. Do you see this? The movie The Fall Guy is now coming out with Emily Blunt, and I'm thinking to myself, of all the shows, and I guess that was who was the guy who played the Fall Guy? Majors.
Lee Majors
played the Fall Guy.
Farrah Fawcett's husband.
Yeah.
Your mortal enemy because he stole your girl.
Exactly. And so I was just thinking, here we go. You know, life is cyclical. Things always come back. We just rehash things we're doing over and over and over again. And so I was up in the middle of the night about a week and a half ago, and I need some wardrobe since we're doing the ABC 3340 thing, and I'm on television a lot more, and I'm doing stuff on Fox 6 and stuff. I get friends of mine saying, dude, you need to buy some more suit jackets. You need some more pants, because I usually don't buy any clothing. I usually just wear free stuff. I used to always get free clothes. It usually had someone's insignia right here, and you'd see me wearing it at church. So I get online, and I have a hard time finding pants that fit me. I wear 34, 36s.
Wow.
And so I'm online, and somehow I found this 34, 36, knowing, because I'm not a guy that orders online. I like to go in the store. I like to try it on. I'm walking out of the store. I know what I got, and I'm happy with it. I don't have to sit there and get excited for a week. Pants show up at the door. They don't fit, because I know I'm kind of a tall, lanky kind of guy. You know, they're not talls. And I know I'm going to be returning the things, and I'm never going to return them. They're going to sit in a box for 3 months. I'm going to end up buying a $75 pair of pants that I'm never going to wear. And so I'm like, so I took a shot. So I ordered 2 pairs of pants. They're the best pants I've ever worn.
Wow.
I got on a Fabric.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. Go ahead.
You know what I'm talking about? And so that is just like a generic name now, Fab Athletics.
Yeah.
They got them everywhere. And then they push you out there to all these different stores, Eddie Bauer and Land's End or whatever. And they all have this type of material. And so I got the pants, and I'm wearing a pair of pants right now. And I wore a pair of pants last week. I got 2 pairs of pants. The most comfortable pants I've ever worn. And then I realized that these are the same pants that I was wearing when I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
That was like 35 years ago?
Which was like 50 years ago.
40 years ago.
I'm thinking to myself, I said, you know, these pants, they're stretchy. They're stretchy.
Yep.
They're like polyester pants. They're like polyester pants. And I was like, you know, we've been waiting around because we're fat, right? We're all overweight. We're 30% of us are morbidly obese, and we're always trying to find things it's not athletic, it's stretchable. We need stuff that stretches. If it doesn't stretch, we can't wear it anymore, right? Because if we get something that does get a little tight, if it stretches, we don't think we're getting fat. We get more use out of it. So I'm starting to think of things that are cyclical in life that go back. I'm like, great, now I'm wearing the same pants that I wore. And then yesterday, go with me here. Yesterday, I hear that for the 17th consecutive year in a row, vinyl record sales are up. Okay. And for only the second time since 1987, vinyl sales were higher than compact disc sales goes. Wow. I also come to find out, and this is really interesting, we sold 49 million albums in 2023. In 1978 was the high year for vinyl sales. We sold 349 million albums in 1 year. And a lot of that was because of the number 1 album from January through April, which was an album you may know called Rumors.
Yes, sir.
And then from April through July 1st, we only had 2 number 1 albums from January 1st to July 7th, the second one being Saturday Night Fever. And I'm thinking to myself, here we go again. They're trying to tell us that vinyl is back in our graces. That don't throw away your vinyl. Vinyl's heavy. I've got 16 peach basket crates of albums. I got 5,000 albums. Every time I move, I have to move these albums and I don't play them anymore. And everyone keeps saying, don't get rid of them. They're going to be like your baseball cards. You're going to want to hold on to your baseball cards. And I said, here comes another thing that is cyclical that everyone's telling me not to get rid of. And all of a sudden album sales are going back up because they're romantic. 57% of people who like albums say they just love to have something to look at, something to hold. You can make an argument that books really never went out. Everyone was talking about Books A Million and Barnes and Noble. They're going to go out the door because everyone's going to be reading books online, but there's still something sexy and romantic and very pleasurable about holding a book in your hand and reading it at night in the bed as opposed to reading it on a computer on a blue screen. So I wanted you, and again, we may not even use this segment. We may not even use this. I want you to think about some things in your life that are cyclical for you, that have come back a full circle in your life that you may be surprised by. You can go as far as going to pet rocks. You can go to whatever that touched your fancy back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, things that came back. Yacht rock. Yacht rock is not yacht rock. It's just music we've had around for 50 years and it sounds really good again. And yacht rock is really hot right now. It's just great music from the 70s. I know you will love that type of music. I'm playing that type of music on my radio station. I love it. So, or stuff that has not come back, that will never come back, that we don't want to come back. 8-track tapes will never come back. They will never come back. They may be sexy. They may be cool to look at. They may be neat to hold one in your hand, but we'll never, ever listen to 8-track tapes again. I don't care how sexy it is. Albums, kind of a pain in the ass. But yeah, there's something neat about hearing the pops and the crisps.
Well, let me ask you a quick question before I respond.
Please.
What are people playing these albums on, Tony? I don't see a lot of advertisement or talk about and I'm going to really, I guess, phonographs or record players. What are people playing these albums on? Where are they getting the equipment?
You can now buy albums or album players, turntables. If you just Google turntables, there are now stores that are popping up all over the place that are selling these turntables for. And really, a lot of them are ones that we still have. I mean, I still have a couple of Technic 1200s that are top of the line turntables. They're $1,200 turntables that I used when I played parties and stuff. I never got rid of them, and they're super heavy, and they use diamond styluses. They're beautiful, and I'll never get rid of them, but I never use them. The whole idea of going, the albums sound better than CDs. No, they don't. No, they don't. No,
there's imperfections on albums.
Yeah. And it's fun and it brings back memories for you.
Yeah.
And if you used to hear the same song over and over and over again, you know exactly where that pop is. You know what the end of the album sounds when the stylus just hits the end of the record. I can remember being up at 96 Rock up in Hamilton, Ohio, and the three of us would be out in the back smoking dope, and you could hear the turntable.
That smoking dope is not cyclical. That's been a constant.
There you go. Back in the 70s, that was a pretty in vogue kind of cool thing to do. And all of a sudden it was like, anti-drugs. We don't do drugs. Yeah. This is your brain on drugs. Guess what,
exactly.
Folks? Guess what? Alabama, for God's sakes, has now ruled that it's okay to smoke dope. I mean, who would have thought of it? But is there anything else that is just gathering in your brain now that we're in our 50s? We've certainly seen, we always talk about life is cyclical. Bell bottoms are back. Bell bottoms are never going to go away. I love bell bottoms because I have big ass feet. So I have to have pants that are a little wider at the bottom. If I wear skinny pants, I look like a flipping clown. My feet are so damn big. I look like a clown. I can never wear skinny pants.
I've got the same issue. What size shoe do you wear?
15s.
Okay, well, you're too high. I'm at 13s, and I feel the same way.
Yeah,
so.
I can't do it. I've got to wear something, wide open at the bottom, or else my feet look huge. But is there anything that you could think of in your life that has come full circle back around, that you could think of, or something that perhaps you would never want to see full circle come back around?
Well, I'm probably a terrible person to ask that question because I am somebody that's really resistant by my DNA to any kind of trend. I'm not a trendy kind of guy. I'm not heavily influenced by what everybody else likes. I've always been kind of kind of a stubborn ass, arrogant, of knowing what I like and what I prefer. And kind of feel like most of my life, Tony, that I have pretty much stuck with the things that I've always gone with. Now, I will say at one time I had a very impressive vinyl album collection, probably, I don't know, maybe 150 different albums, because at one time that was the way you listened to music, and I loved it. I don't know what happened to those albums. I don't know if I gave them to my sister or if I just left them. I abandoned a couple of addresses and never went and gathered up my thing. I don't know what happened to all the albums I have. I cannot give you an actual description of what happened to them. I had one of the best Christmas or birthday presents I ever got. They gave me this really cool stereo with the turntable, and you could stack about 5 albums, and one of them played out.
Stackables,
the thing would back up, and they dropped the next one, and it was just constant entertainment.
Cool was that?
Oh, that was awesome.
You could do it with 45s too. You could do it. There's a 45 adapter. Yeah. You could use a 45 adapter. Yeah.
That was just cutting edge technology back then. But, I guess the point is, for me, when that became the dodo sort of, and there was other ways to listen to music, because in my teenage years, car stereos became the thing that was the had to have product. But again, I wasn't really responding to a trend as much as, I was going back and forth. I lived in Atlanta basically, but was going to college in Memphis, and I was doing a lot of over the road driving, and I got so into my music there that I made the investment as they transitioned from 8 tracks to cassettes. So I had a bunch of those at one time. Yeah, you said now you've got 5 crates of albums. I was just in my storage unit the other day, which is another story. But I realized that as looking around there, I've taken just about everything that was viable out of there. I've just got a few things, but of the boxes remaining, like 6 of them are complete crammed full with VHS tapes. What the hell am I going to do with those, and why am I holding on to them?
I've got those too.
I mean, what do we do with them? I asked my son, who's really cutting edge on
I've got brand new movies that have never been opened.
I still in the plastic. Me too. And I asked him, I said, are there any value to these at all? And he looked at me and said, no.
What do you do with them? You can't just throw a perfectly good movie. Yeah. I mean, they're not even open.
I've got the Godfather trilogy. I've got Ken Burns' Civil War, Burns' Baseball. I mean, these are things that are just awesome, and I can't throw them away.
I'm the same exact way. I've got a box of that stuff that just kind of goes along with me, and maybe I'll throw a couple away each. I've got because I got 3 kids, I've got every Disney VHS movie.
Yeah, me too.
Everything from Lady and the Tramp. I mean, I've got it all, and it's sitting there, and it's brand new. It's brand new. I don't even know what to do. And I feel guilty about throwing that stuff away because it's perfectly good for somebody. I don't know where to go with that. Let me back up a little bit, because you brought up something really interesting that I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd bring up something that I could tangent off on this. So AC/DC was one of the last bands on the face of the earth to allow iTunes to sell their music. Now, one of the reasons they were one of the last bands to sell their tunes, and I think Metallica was that way too, was because they believed that when they released an album, it was a listening experience. There are not 1 song, there's not 2 songs, there's not 4 songs, it's not an EP. There are 10 to 11 to 12 songs off this album. There would be a way where they would sit there and say, okay, this was going to be the first one released as a single, usually with side A. Cut 1 was going to be the first single of an album, and then you'd have You'd have somewhere between 35 and 40 songs. You copper it down to you get you 20, and then you pick it down to about 16 or 17 songs. You put a couple of deep cuts on, and you weren't necessarily trying to pick every song that was going to be a hit off a record. Although sometimes you just took your 9 or 10 best songs and hope like hell something would hit. There were certainly some songs on there that some of the band members like. Listen, I love this song. I don't care if people don't like it or not. This exemplifies my ideologies.
This is my statement.
This is my statement. This is my song. And so I really appreciate the fact that AC/DC did it, because they like, when you buy an album, you should listen to the whole thing. 57% of all album sales in 2023 were through vinyl. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, 57%. But if you look at all the overall music that was sold, vinyl only accounts for 4% of all music sold because we're all buying those 99-cent iTunes. We're all buying the streaming services. We all got the free iTunes and we're just listening to the music as it comes up. What if from a guy like you who can recite the lyrics off Souvenirs from Dan Fogelberg back in 1974 from start to finish, what are we missing out on when we get new albums? Now I'm not even going to use Taylor Swift as an example because Swifties will buy, they know they're going to love every single song on the album. When you and I went out and bought a new album from the Steve Miller Band, we usually wait till there was a couple of hits on it first. You know, if you had 2 hits, it was worth buying. It was worth putting the $8.99 or $7.99 out there because you knew the rest of the album, some of it sucked. You know, I got some albums where the front side is fantastic, the back side I never listened to it again.
They just mail that in.
What are we missing out on, knowing that we're never hearing any of these other songs by anybody? See, if you had, I just pick somebody. So I say Steve Miller Band. And it had 2 or 3 good songs, and they were all, maybe they were songs number 1 and number 4 on the front side, maybe number 2 and number 5 on the back side. You weren't going to go up and pick the needle up and move it. You couldn't fast forward it on an LP. Now you could do that on a cassette deck, which was really cool. And of course, CDs were great because you just hit the next track, right? It would just go to the next track. So when we had albums, we had to listen to the entire album.
Yes.
And because we had to listen to the entire album, we fell in love with the entire album. We ended up listening to some of the songs that we thought we'd never like, but ended up falling in love with them because they were just such a wonderful, wonderful song. And I wonder now, these kids, they don't ever hear any of that other music from these artists. All they're hearing are the hits. And I'm wondering, how does that play into, you don't ever hear any of the songs from any other artist?
Tony, now you've inspired me on something because the artists that I really was into, that I really loved their music, I couldn't wait to listen to the entire album. And to this day, I can name 15 or 20 songs that in this era I never would have known existed that are my very favorites. Billy Joel put out an album, and now I'm having a blank moment here, but it was just full of huge hits. Well, we all have a face that we hide away forever. That was the
not Glass House.
Oh, what was the name of that song? It's killing me. It's the name of the album too. The Stranger.
Oh, The Stranger.
Remember the face of the Stranger? We love to try them on. But there's songs on the back of that album. One of them called "I've Loved These Days" that was never, any song that anybody ever knew. It's one of my favorite Billy Joel songs ever. In fact, Billy Joel's supposedly going to have a TV special playing live at Carnegie Hall or somewhere here in the next couple of weeks.
Madison Square Garden.
Square Garden. That's even better.
His 100th show.
That's awesome. Because another one of my favorites was we're just awful, as I always do, get off the track. But Billy Joel played the last show ever at Shea Stadium, where he basically started his career. The last play at Shea is one of the best documentaries because he brings in all kinds of luminary, singers and songwriters, and they perform songs with him. But so I'm really looking forward to that Joel network TV thing, but there's so many songs like that. And here's another interesting example. My friend Mark Random, who you've met, heard a song somewhere, and he went to look for the album, the vinyl album. This is back in like the early 70s, and he found one he thought was the artist that he'd heard the song, and it turned out to be a completely different group that and the song he was looking for wasn't on there. But so he ended up saying, "Well, do you want this album? It's pretty good if you want to listen to it." And there's a song on there. It's the Mark Allman Band, who nobody's ever heard of. I don't know.
Wow.
if you even, I know you've heard of every band, but Mark Allman did, maybe 2 albums. There's a song on there called Trade Winds that Tony, it's actually on YouTube and I listen to it all the time.
Really?
It's one of my favorite songs ever. And it was an absolute mistake, but there's so many songs like that. And I like you said, I have the capacity to, if I love a song, I listen to it over and over and I just absorb the lyrics. And, 50 years later, I can still, recite them or sing them usually sing them because I sing along with everything I listen to. But the other point I wanted to make is I don't have any inclination or desire to go back to albums, because when I moved to my new address here, the first thing that I did is put in something that I always wanted was a home studio. Mm-hmm. I've got the 130-inch screen. I've got a projection mounted, ceiling mounted projector. I watched all the NCAA games over the weekend and the Braves started the season. And, nice. I was just in heaven all weekend here, but probably my favorite thing even is to just leave the screen out of it, because the other big investment was the sound system, which I've got this surround sound extravaganza system that's tied into my projector. And I just love to go to different music services. I can just bark out a song to Alexa and she'll fire it right up. And the quality and the sound is so amazing in my studio, listen to my music, that I can't imagine going back to vinyl. This is 100 times better. No. So I know it's nostalgia. I know it's comfort zone stuff for people, but technology now allows you, and I don't think I could ever go back.
No, and I do wonder. Listen, it all comes down to the mighty dollar, right? I mentioned this, and maybe I didn't. 1 in every 15 albums sold last year was a Taylor Swift album.
Oh, that's incredible.
1 in 15, Kip. I mean, that's
what a phenomenon she is.
Out of the 390,000 or 390 million albums sold in 1978, maybe. Well, I mean, if you do the math, you'd have to sell, in order to get 1 in 100, you'd have to sell 33 million albums. So, I mean, that's just crazy. So she single-handedly has brought back the vinyl aspect.
Incredible.
But it was going up the 14 or 15 years prior to last year. So obviously it's been trending up. I do wonder, and our good friend Damon Johnson, who of course we had on ABC 3340, who's the lead guitarist for Leonard Skinner. One of the things he did was he sold albums. He's like, people are into albums again. It's a sexy thing. I don't know if people actually get the albums out and listen to them, because you have to consider it's Leonard Skinner, right? So your average listener is 30, 40, 50 years old. There's your album listeners. I bought the album just as a frameable. Something I could frame. I'll never take it out of the package. And again, the last time I played an album, I bought a floor unit, a Kenwood floor unit from 1964, something. It was at, I was in Garden City at an auction up there, and they had a floor unit that looked like the one my father used to have. It was one of the old floor units that it was huge. It was
my parents had one too. It was the length of the living room.
Yeah, about waist high and about 6-7 feet long.
Yeah, and you'd pull the hatch up, and there'd be the turntable and all the buttons. And
the legs were catty corner. The legs were set out so it could sit.
It's a piece of furniture.
It was a piece of furniture, and do not sit on the stereo.
Absolutely not.
My dad, do not sit on the stereo. But I mean, we fired that thing up. I can remember listening to my favorite K-Tel albums. There was one called Dynamite that I remember listening to, Taking Care of Business on my dad's floor unit. But I put it out in the garage, and I put a couple of, and I think I even made a post about it, saying that the Doobie Brothers never sound better to listen to a Doobie Brothers record on this old piece of crap, and the needle was just horrible. But again, I don't know why people are buying albums. I don't know if they're actually listening to albums. I will say this, for people that are like, don't get rid of your albums, they're going to be worth money someday. This is not the baseball card revolution. They're not going to be. Well, now you go down to Charles and Fifth and Charles, or Charles and Second, or whatever the hell that place is in by the Galleria.
Yeah,
they're selling Journey Escape albums for $36.
Unbelievable.
But people ain't buying them for $36. That you can get on eBay and you can check out Leonard Skinner's thing, and you can find Second Helping, and it's $43. It doesn't mean people are spending $43 on it. That's what it's going for. Just because it's for sale on eBay doesn't mean people are getting what they're asking for.
Yeah.
So you can still go back and find these K-Tel albums for $6.99, $7.99. They're actually cheaper than they were when you actually bought them in the store. And then do you remember those K-Tel albums, and once in a while you'd actually buy one and it wasn't the original artist? It was all songs that were supposed to sound like the original artist, but it wasn't the original artist. And you felt like, why was this only $3.99 and not $7.99?
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, it's because there wasn't really Randy Bachman singing that BTO song. So it's a sexy thing. It's cool to have. I made a coffee table out of my albums. I got a piece of plexiglass and put it over top my albums, which I may do again someday now that I'm a bachelor.
Still in the package, huh?
Still in the package.
Yeah, you never open the albums.
No.
So I'm just thinking of a business idea here. Why don't we make a deal with a bunch of bands and just do the sexy thing? It sounds to me like isn't having the actual album if you're never going to open the package. It's just having the cover because the albums that was the coolest thing. And also I love back in the day that there would be like an insert in a lot of those albums telling the stories behind the songs. It had all the lyrics to the songs.
Dude, the lyrics.
I mean, there was just so many cool things if you bought an album. So, people
don't understand. You would go, could you imagine getting a Taylor Swift album right now? Say if you're 16 or 17, listen to the radio right now, listen to Keefer and Kurre show here on TKR. You go buy the Taylor Swift album and you don't know what the lyrics are. The only way you're going to know the lyrics is to listen to songs over and over and over again. Which is what a lot of Swifties are going to do. But now all you got to do, I remember sitting around a table one night, hiring a kite, listen to the Hollies' Long Cool Woman in the Black Dress. And a friend of mine said, could you please find out what the lyrics are to that song? And I said, no. I said, no. And he was like, you don't know what the lyrics are to Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress? This is 1987. I said, no, I don't. And if you go back and try to listen to the lyrics, it's hard to tell what the hell he's singing. It's really hard. But now you can just go on the internet and put lyrics to Long Cool Woman and you can find out anything you want. For gosh sakes, what was it? Louie? They didn't play on the radio for a couple of years because people didn't know what the lyrics were. They thought they were cussing during the song. So a lot of AM stations were like, we're not playing this song because we're not sure what in the hell they're saying. But yeah, and so you get an album and sometimes you'd pull out a piece of paper, a sleeve that was slid in the back, and it was the lyrics page, man. It had all the lyrics and you were like, oh man. And you used to sit there and read it like a book.
Yeah, you play the new album and you've got the lyrics in your hand and you're following along. It's a lost thing. Remember the Elton John song Rocket Man? There was controversy for years about one line in the song that everybody heard differently. Yep. Because he just and it turned out it was burning up this fuel up here alone. But people had all kinds of different ways to sing that. We used to be so into lyrics in high school that sometimes when we were bored in class, you just sit there and write lyrics out. On in your notebook, and whatnot. And
we should do a show on that, man.
I know. We're going to throw Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to throw my friend Steve Hardy under the bus. One day he was doing that, and he was doing the old song, Have You Seen Her? And he said, and remember how that song started? 10 years ago, I was happy as a lark. But Steve had kind of heard the song differently because when he showed us his notebook, the first line he wrote was, 10 years ago, I was happy as a log. Well, I don't know how happy logs are. But we gave him shit about that for years, and we still tease him about it.
Hey, my favorite too. I used to think "Call Me the Breeze." I love you, Georgia Peaches. I thought they were saying "I love you, Joe the Preacher." If you listen to that, it sounds "I love you, Joe the Preacher." It sounds like you're saying Joe the Preacher. John Fogerty made "There's a Bad Moon on the Rise." He made it hysterically. It was point on where everyone thought they said there's a bathroom on the right. In his live album, Premonitions, he sings "There's a Bathroom on the Right" in the middle of the song. He actually sings that verse. And the other one, it was, what was the other one? Revved Up Like a Deuce, Another Roll on a Night. We thought they said, we thought they said douche. Revved up like a douche.
To this day, people think that's what the line is.
Yeah. Revved up.
Like Bruce Springsteen wrote that song, and I was going, that doesn't make any sense, because that is exactly how that lyric sounds.
It did. Oh, that's hilarious. Great stuff.
Amazing. Let me add one quick thing. I know we're running along, but it just kind of dawned on me, and I don't want to put a damper on what's been a really interesting topic. But you asked me if I have any retroactive things. I do have kind of a retroactive emotion. In my teenage and young adult years, always in pursuit of the fairer sex, and always setting my bar extremely high. Probably higher than I needed to based on my suave and attractiveness and worldliness and anything else you want to put in that category from that awkward time when you're 16 to about 21 or 22, and just failing constantly, always getting to the gates, but never able to, to breach the defenses out front. It's funny now at this point of life, Tony, I guess that's my biggest retroactive thing. I'm kind of feeling the same thing now in pursuit of relationships, but it's a completely different dynamic in that before I felt inadequate and not up to the task and like I was the great underdog. Now that the experience is really bizarre because I feel like I'm at a great point in my life. I feel like I've developed into a full-scale person with humor and intellect and the whole package. I don't think I'm horrible to look at this age. I'm not. I'm certainly not going to go on the Golden Bachelor. They're not going to be selected for that. But I'm feeling the retroactive feelings of kind of frustration and rejection that I felt back then, and it's for completely different reason. So that just kind of popped in my head, but I know that's fertile ground for further discussions on another program. But that I finally answered your question. That's the one thing that I guess I've gone back to that I had abandoned long ago.
Well, if we ever get a chance, and you and I have broached the subject several times about doing some type of relationship show, and I'm serious. I think there would be a huge need for that, particularly at our age, in our experiences in our lives. Me more recently than you, going through a divorce, having children, the whole 9 yards. I think we could bring a lot to the table when it comes to a dating thing too, because I'm like you. I feel like I'm above going through dating apps. I know dating apps are a lot different than they used to be. And I know they used to be, you never went to a dating app unless you were just a plain loser. You needed to go to a dating app back in the 80s and the early 90s when they were started. Now it's an in vogue thing. And it's kind of a cool thing to do. And people just do it just for fun. Some people they're not even looking for relationships. They just get on dating apps to go on dates with people and meet people, which is fine. And there's about 75 million of them out there. I don't know if that's the road you want to go. But I will say this, and I'm kind of in the same boat. And again, I have not been divorced as long as you have. But I am finding myself needing to I've got to put myself in the right position to meet the next Mrs. Keefer. And so, if I'm not putting myself in a position to meet those people, you just can't sit around the house all day watching television, waiting for the phone ring because they can't find you. And I used to be when you were on the radio a lot, that was a great place to meet a lot of women.
For sure.
Being on the radio. Now, sometimes it was 3 o'clock.
Of course, you always had to worry about Play Misty for me, but
no doubt.
As you've experienced,
there were many a night where I picked up a Domino's on the way to someone's house at 3 o'clock in the morning and prayed to the Lord that I was going to be sharing that pizza and not throwing her out here at the door and running out the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll come back around for you, man. Life is cyclical. It'll come back around for you. And now that you are older and wiser, I always tell myself, just because you're older and wiser doesn't mean you're smarter.
Yeah, I was young and clueless. Now I'm old and wise, and it's the same results.
You could be fast and not quick. Yeah, but it'll come back around for you. It'll get there. It'll get there.
So that's my cynical example that I can come up with. But I love the topic, and I always like when we get into music that this is like being able to exchange ideas with the ultimate professor on the subject, because again, every time that that people talk about the show. Everybody in this community talks about Tony Kurre. You were such a huge part of so many people's lives, and you've always got that. I mean, they should build a Tony Kurre statue in front of the old what used to be the Dick Broadcasting and then Cumulus building now, but there should be a Tony Kurre statue out front.
Well, I appreciate that, my friend. Catch up with you on Saturday, 10:30, 11 o'clock. Starting lineup.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be
I can't wait. I jet out right after the show for the Final Four. So I can't wait.
Good. We're going to have Mark Ingram, of course, the UAB Athletic
Director. That's going to be awesome.
The show as well. So we'll see you on Saturday morning, my friend.
Thank you, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.